See it, right? The incredible advancements in medical science. I mean, we have precision medicine that can target an illness with just microscopic accuracy.
It's astounding.
Yeah, these are treatments for the physical body that, were just unimaginable a generation ago. It's really an era of groundbreaking care.
And we absolutely have to celebrate that. The biological fight, especially against diseases like cancer, it continues to make just enormous progress. People are living longer, the prognoses are better.
Well, this is the big but. Here's the realization that hits every single patient, every family member, every, exhausted caregiver. A major illness is never just a physical diagnosis. It might start in the cells, sure, but it so quickly turns into this profound, messy, and intensely human journey.
It changes everything.
Everything, your identity, your purpose, your connections. And you, listening right now, you're interested in getting quickly but thoroughly informed on what truly helps people navigate that whole journey. Not just the cellular fight, but the existential one.
And that is precisely our mission today. We're going to do a deep dive into some really powerful recent source material, specifically a systematic review and meta-analysis on spiritual care for people living with cancer.
And this isn't about feelings or intuition.
No, this is about data.
And when we say spiritual care, let's be clear, we are deliberately broadening that definition way beyond, specific faiths. We're talking about the non-physical support that helps people handle the enormous weight of a diagnosis.
It's about finding meaning when everything feels like chaos.
Exactly. So our goal is to move past the anecdotes, right?
We want to apply real scientific rigor and see what the absolute highest level of clinical evidence confirms about this kind of support. Does it actually work?
So what does this all mean for the patient? Does this kind of support actually improve quality of life?
Well,
and what does the data say about making it, evidence-based, just like surgery or radiation?
Okay, so to understand why this research is so vital, we have to start by setting the scene for suffering. The source material is very clear on this. Even as precision medicine gets better and better, many patients and their families, they continue to suffer deeply. And we're talking beyond just physical pain.
We're talking about that persistent suffering, the emotional distress, the spiritual distress.
Yes.
That anguish that makes you question your entire purpose.
Yeah.
That feeling of being totally alone or just disconnected from the person you used to be. I mean, one source even said that patients in remission can feel completely adrift.
Because their life story has been broken.
Exactly.
And this gets to the core problem the research is trying to solve. That this existential distress, it often remains, well, invisible in a standard clinical setting.
Invisible? How so?
Well, if a clinician is focused only on blood counts and tumor markers, they might not be trained to even see, let alone screen for, that kind of existential pain.
So they can miss it entirely.
They can miss it entirely, even if the patient is, on paper, medically thriving.
So we've built these incredible hospitals for the body, but maybe we haven't adequately staffed them for the soul.
That's a good way to put it. The biological problem gets managed, but the human problem, it just persists silently.
And I imagine that's made worse by other issues.
It is. The source material connects this invisible suffering to broader barriers like disparities in wealth, where you live, access to care. All these social issues just magnify the fear and the lack of meaning.
Things that science alone can't fix.
Science alone cannot fix them.
Which brings us right back to the start. Facing a major illness is a human journey. It needs more than just biological solutions.
Precisely. And if we know that this suffering exists, then it becomes absolutely imperative to find ways to relieve it. And those methods have to be based on solid evidence.
Okay, so let's look at that evidence. Let's move from the philosophy to the cold, hard data.
Let's do it.
Because what we're about to discuss, it's not based on, a few compelling stories. This is grounded in the highest standard of research.
And what's so fascinating here is the sheer rigor of the evidence they gathered. The researchers didn't look at, weak studies or surveys. They specifically analyzed a whole set of randomized controlled trials.
RCTs.
RCTs, yes.
Okay, so for anyone listening who wants to understand the rigor here, just remind us why the RCT is considered the gold standard.
It's the benchmark because it's designed to eliminate bias. In a proper RCT, you have patients who are randomized. It's like slipping a coin into different groups. One group gets the intervention, in this case, spiritual care.
And the other group gets standard care.
The control.
Exactly, the control group. And crucially, a lot of the time, the patients and even the assessors don't know who is getting what. That's called blinding.
So you're really isolating the effect of the spiritual care itself. It's not just a placebo effect or,
Mm.
the benefit of just getting extra attention.
That's it, exactly. This is the same method we use to approve blockbuster drugs.
Hmm.
And the scale here is also really important. This was a meta-analysis, so it pulled together data from lots of high-quality RCTs. How many patients are we talking about?
Altogether, over 1,000 patients.
Wow.
Yeah, that gives the findings enormous statistical power. It means they're reliable.
And just to be clear, we're talking about cutting-edge findings. The source material puts this meta-analysis in the Journal of Religion and Health, published in 2025. So this is the absolute most current thinking on this.
It is. And that robust method lets us talk with real confidence about whether these interventions actually work.
Okay, so that leads to the big question. When I hear spiritual care, my mind immediately goes to a priest or a rabbi, some kind of specific religious leader. Was this research focused on religion?
That is the essential clarification, and it's a point the source material really emphasizes, because the answer is a clear no.
It's not about religion.
It's not. The interventions they reviewed were explicitly not about pushing a specific faith or dogma on people. If they were, the clinical application would be far too narrow.
Okay, so if it wasn't about doctrine, what was the common thread running through all these interventions?
The focus was on shared, universal human experiences. The goal was to help people explore those deep existential questions that a cancer diagnosis forces on you.
Like what?
Like finding or reaffirming a sense of purpose, cultivating inner peace, maintaining connection to others, and sort of reconstructing your sense of identity while you're living through this profound change.
That's a powerful way to frame it, reconstructing identity. It's about finding some firm ground when everything else has turned to liquid.
And it's adaptable, right? It doesn't matter what a patient's belief system is.
So what did these interventions actually look like in practice?
Well, the review covered several different measurable approaches.
Give us a couple of examples.
Sure. One of the big ones was meaning-centered therapy. This is a brief, structured psychological intervention. It helps patients reframe their lives, find new sources of significance.
So things like family, legacy, creativity.
Exactly. It helps shift the focus from why is this happening to me to how will I choose to live now?
So it's an active engagement with the trauma, not just trying to distract from it.
Very active. Another one with really strong results was dignity therapy.
Dignity therapy.
Yeah, this focuses on preserving a person's inherent worth. Often, it involves creating a legacy document, like a letter or a recording, where the patient can pass on their life lessons, their hopes for their family.
Wow, so it's about affirming their self-worth and purpose, even when their body might be failing them.
That's it. It adds this incredible depth to the idea of care. It's not just what you do for the patient, but what you help the patient do for themselves and for others.
That's a huge shift.
It is. And then there were others, like mindfulness practices to help manage distress, body-mind practices like yoga, and then more general spiritual counseling that was tailored to the individual.
That list really shows you that spiritual care isn't this one vague thing. It's a toolbox.
It's a toolbox of evidence-based psychological and philosophical tools.
Designed to treat that invisible suffering with clinical precision.
It's targeted treatment for the distress that chemotherapy alone just cannot touch.
Okay, so we've got the highest standard of evidence RCTs, over 1,000 patients, and we know what these non-religious interventions were. So, the big reveal. Did they work? Did they produce measurable results?
The conclusion from the research is definitive and clear. Patients who received these spiritual interventions reported better overall quality of life.
Like your quality of life.
And they had better spiritual well-being scores than the patients in the control groups.
So that's more than just a nice idea. It's a clinical imperative. But let's drill down on that. What does better quality of life actually mean here? Where were the strongest effects?
This is a really crucial point. The source material shows that the strongest, most significant benefits were seen specifically in the emotional and existential areas.
The things that define the human experience of it all.
Precisely.
And we can actually quantify that. What were the gains?
Oh, absolutely. The improvements were statistically significant. We saw a marked decrease in overall distress.
Which is a key patient-reported outcome.
A key outcome, yeah. We saw demonstrably better coping mechanisms for daily challenges and a stronger, measurable sense of meaning or purpose in their lives.
That difference between less distress and better coping, that seems vital.
It is.
Because less distress means the pain is quieter, but better coping means they're actively managing their reality better, sticking to treatments, communicating with family.
You've hit the nail on the head. They weren't just passively feeling better. They were functionally adapting better to an incredibly difficult situation.
Hmm.
But this is where we have to add a key nuance, a limitation.
Okay. What's the clarification?
The research showed that these interventions did not, you know, magically make physical symptoms disappear. This is not a substitute for medical treatment.
Right. So the nausea, the pain, the fatigue, all of that was still there for these patients.
It was still there. But here's the powerful finding. The interventions helped people to be better able to live with what they were facing.
Ah.
The experience of the illness was transformed, even if the underlying physical condition was still there.
So in a situation where science can only manage, not cure, this kind of care can provide dignity and meaning, and that's now measurable.
Exactly. The goal shifts from just surviving to actually living while you're facing the illness.
Which brings that core realization right to you, our listener.
This research confirms something absolutely essential about what patient support really is. It moves the idea of meaning and identity out of philosophy and firmly into clinical necessity.
This is the big takeaway. Spiritual care is not an optional add-on. It's not something nice to have if the budget allows.
No.
It's not soft. It is now scientifically validated as essential, clinically rigorous support for real human suffering.
And the implication of that for care teams, for hospitals, for policymakers,
Mm-hmm.
it's monumental. This conversation, the one that honors both science and the human spirit, it has to be part of the medical treatment plan.
It's not secondary care anymore.
It's not, because healing isn't just about surviving cancer. It's about ensuring the patient maintains their dignity, their meaning, their connection, every single step of the way.
That ability to find meaning, even in suffering, becomes the new definition of quality care.
The clinical goal is it's broader now. You move from just preserving biological life to affirming human life in its fullest sense.
So let's just quickly review the key finding for you. We've seen that rigorous clinical evidence, we're talking RCTs, a systematic review of over 1,000 patients, it strongly supports using these non-religious spiritual interventions.
Things like dignity therapy, meaning-centered therapy, mindfulness.
And the whole purpose is to measurably improve emotional well-being, decrease distress, and build better coping skills for patients. It's essential care that actually works.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought.
The future application. If this evidence is now so unequivocally clear that spiritual care is necessary and effective, what do we do now? What steps do we take to overcome those barriers, the access issues that the sources mentioned?
Right. The research was clear that too many patients, especially in under-resourced communities, still can't get this kind of support. They're still suffering needlessly because of these access gaps.
So it raises that huge question of implementation, of coverage. How do we make sure this essential support reaches every patient and caregiver who needs it, not just the ones lucky enough to be at a major research hospital?
And that's the question for you to consider as you move forward with this knowledge. How do we turn this scientific validation into universal clinical practice? How do we make meaning and dignity accessible to everyone who faces this journey?
Exactly. And to reflect on how a strong sense of meaning and connection isn't just a comfort, it's not a nice thought. It is scientifically proven, clinically critical support in the most challenging times a human can face. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.